I would like to thank everybody for participating today. I think these are probably some of the most important conversations that we can have, and certainly we want to, everybody comes from different backgrounds and perspectives, and so I think it's important that we feel comfortable being able to talk about our experiences, and no matter from what angle you're at, that you should feel comfortable being able to express yourself without attack. And also be willing to listen to someone else's perspective and try to put yourself in that person's shoes for a while. So this won't be structured in any way. What we really wanted to do was have an opportunity for people to express what they were feeling, especially over the events of the last week, with the videotape showing the murder of George Floyd, which was very shocking. And so we just want people to be able to express their feelings and talk about the tape and maybe talk about some things that they learned from watching that. And so I guess I can start off, and I won't be too lengthy, but of course, being an African American in this country, the tape was shocking, and viewing the murder of someone on video was shocking, but it's not something that we have not experienced before, and it's not something that we don't know about. And so I think if that's one thing that I could communicate to all of you, is that this is something that occurs with frequency in our community. So I forced myself to watch the full-length video of the murder of George Floyd, not what they showed on TV, but what you can find on YouTube, which is approximately 10 minutes long, and it shows the entire event. And one thing that I want to draw your attention to, other than the callousness of all four of those officers, is the way that they behaved themselves after George Floyd was put into the ambulance and taken away. And at this point, I believe that he was already deceased. But what you will see on the tape is that the four officers were not in a panic state. They were not hyped up in any way. They were very calm and relaxed. They were milling about their patrol cars. They were talking to one another, and it was very casual. And that spoke to me the loudest, because it says that this is routine, and there was nothing abnormal to them about those events. And this speaks to the institutional racism that is present in this country, that this was just a part of another day for them. And then they just got in their cruisers and they left. So they weren't worried about repercussions because they knew they were being videotaped. They knew probably it would be on social media. But since this has happened time and time and time again, and nothing has happened, they were confident that this time there would be no repercussions for themselves. And so I guess if there is one thing that I could ask of each of you on this call, and I'm not speaking as the ASBMR for the ASBMR or the diversity subcommittee, I'm speaking as a fellow human being, is that it's now time that we have self-reflection, because we contribute to these institutions. We contribute to these societies. And if we turn a blind eye, if we continue to be silent because it does not affect us, this will continue to go on. And a sense that I've gotten over the past week or so that I'm seeing from the Black community is that we will no longer accept this. And so the fact that we're kind of resolute in this position means that we will continue to have strife if we don't come together and make a change as decent people. And so I'm asking everybody on this call today to make a commitment to that. Even though you may not recognize that you have some biases, I guarantee that living in this country, you can't help to have biases. And so I'm asking you to do some self-reflection and educate yourself. There are resources available. You can go to YouTube, you can Google Jane Elliott, you can Google Robin DiAngelo, you can Google Tim Weiss, and they will teach you what to look for in your community and within yourself, because we all have to change. And so I won't ramble on. I'll let other people speak if they have something that they'd like to express.
Thanks, Rhonda. As a reminder, please use the raise hand function in the participant tab to voice your opinion or follow up with what Rhonda said.
I guess if no one feels quite comfortable speaking now, I guess I can ask the question, if you feel comfortable speaking about the tape, if you saw the video recording, could you at least tell us what it is that you learned about that? If you were a person that was unconvinced of the violence of police brutality against minority communities, could you at least tell us if you have a different opinion now, or what are your thoughts about that now?
This is Teresita Balido. I really would like to raise my hand, but I don't find my name in the list. And so that's why I'm not, putting my hand up in the participant note, because I don't see myself there. But I just want to say that I hope that, I'm seeing myself now there, and I'm talking anyway. I just want to say that the letter that we sent, ASBMR sent, that was signed by me, I fully I agree that we have to commit to this. And so definitely I should support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Sharon, I'm going to unmute you.
Thank you. Rhonda, I'm listening from Australia as an ASBMR member. What's happened in America has caught us over here as well, and so the majority, we always have minorities of course, but the majority of Australians are empathetic to what's happening, and this has also raised the issue for Australian Aboriginals as well, and it's the same issues over here, and we're gathering more momentum to improve the lived experience for Aboriginal Australians, and so you have the support of Australia. It's awful, and you spoke so eloquently, Rhonda. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to say, I know a lot of people probably are participating because they want to listen, but we cannot be afraid to have conversations to one another. We can't be afraid that our viewpoint will be kind of just so far out there that we'll be attacked, because if we don't talk to one another, we can't learn about one another. We'll never understand the other person's perspective. And I just would encourage everybody, you guys are here for a reason. And if you remain silent, then this is not going to change. This will not change. We have to be able to talk to one another. Is there anybody that would like to offer some type of perspective as to what they were feeling when they first saw the video, or has this kind of opened your eyes up to other things that may be going on in society?
Yeah, let me unmute Marion. Marion Hannon.
Hi, this is Marion Hannon. I'm calling from Boston. And I just wanted to say, again, thank you for having this listening session today. It's been an incredibly emotional time for just obviously everybody in all 50 states and in pretty much every country around the world. It's just been incredible. And one of the things that came home for me was just thinking, I guess my approach has always been like one-on-one, recognizing things, taking action where I thought I could. And what came home for me, especially after seeing the video, was, yeah, one-on-one is a nice thing, but it's just not enough. And I'm just so taken. Here in Boston, by and large, the protests have been remarkably, incredibly educational for me and for other people in my neighborhood. But I guess that the take-home message today, which sort of changes on a daily basis for me, depending on new information that comes in, is just that I need to somehow figure out a way to be much more encompassing in my own integration of this information and how to change things moving forward. I keep waiting for the old guard to die out and the new guard to step up and to do the right thing and to do the right thing myself on a one-on-one. And I'm realizing it's insufficient. So I really appreciate it, Rhonda. You're starting out saying, I wrote down the names of people that you said, like, check them out on YouTube, check out these tools that are available. And I really appreciate that, because I feel like I want more tools and to have the ability to have those more tools is great. So again, I appreciate this listening session. I appreciate what people have to say, and I appreciate that, you know, I thought I was doing things that were reasonable, and I think I've been pretty pathetic and need to step up my game somewhat, and having the tools to do that will be really helpful. Just wanted to note that.
Thank you, Marion. Ron Kwan, let me unmute you.
For those of you who don't know me, my name is Ron. I'm an associate professor at the University of Washington. And I also want to apologize at the beginning. I didn't come on to the webinar actually planning on saying anything, but Rhonda, already your request to just speak up and, I thought was really important, because I think it's more important to say something right now than to not say something and be scared that you're going to say the wrong thing. So for me, actually, what the events of the past few days have really made me think about as a scientist is, sort of where we can intervene the best in terms of trying to promote societal equality. And really, I think that is oftentimes within our own sphere, within science and medicine and scientific research, within our own enterprise. And, given that we are a bone and mineral society, I think that this is actually a really good opportunity for us to actually maybe focus some of these discussions onto ourselves and talk about what types of problems that we see and how can we start addressing them as a scientific community. So I guess my comment is to see maybe whether people would be willing to sort of direct the conversation in that direction.
Thank you, Ron. I'm gonna unmute Patrick.
Hi, everyone. I'm Patrick Mulcairn. I'm a postdoc at IU School of Medicine, and I, again, want to thank the diversity committee for putting this on and for Rhonda for emceeing it. I wanted to kind of answer her question about the initial reaction. I think when the story first popped up, and this kind of goes back to Rhonda's point about how common it is and how complicit people have been, I thought of it as another unfortunate event, but I didn't really pay a lot of attention initially when it came out, because this does happen so often. And we had the story of Ahmaud Arbery that had been in the news, which that was developing and more details were coming out. But I think when more of the video came to light and the amount of just brutality and how disturbing that those scenes were when it was covered more, then it started to hit home a little bit more that this person was murdered, and this was a person who, for something that didn't deserve that amount of reaction, for an alleged $20 bill, this man lost his life. And I think I kind of wish that I had been outraged initially from seeing it, but I think it's one of those things that it happens so much and a lot, and being in a in the privileged group systemically, as well as for a lot of reasons, I think the initial reaction is maybe sometimes to not really pay too much attention, and then once more comes out, then it becomes more of a problem. And I think what I've been hopefully trying to do is trying to educate myself a lot more, learning more about why these things are occurring, what systems have been in place, and just learning more about what's going on. I think I knew that there were definitely problems. I was never that removed from it, but again, I'm never going to have to experience anything that the Black community has experienced living in this country. And so I think I'm hoping that what I can do is, again, I was coming to this not to speak, but I really do want to contribute to the conversation and figure out what I can learn and what I can pass on and what I can tell other people to make it better, so that this, I think it'd be naive to say that this doesn't happen again, because it's going to happen again, because it's too the system is too set up, and it's going to take a long time to get it to a point where it's actually, if ever, going to be fair for everybody who's here. But I do appreciate the opportunity to come and to listen and to contribute.
Thanks, Patrick.
Can I just add something to that, just to kind of follow up on what Patrick was saying? So the alleged forgery involved the passing of what may have been a counterfeit $20 bill. And so if we think about how often we exchange money in society, that George Floyd, if it was counterfeit, may not even have been aware that he was using that. And so you think that if you go in there innocently to purchase something with money that maybe you got from someone else and it happens to be counterfeit, and then the end result of that is a 9-minute suffocation to death. I mean, we really have to bring this into perspective.
Sharon has her hand raised one more, so Sharon, I will unmute you. Oh. Sharon, can you unmute yourself? Sorry. There you go.
Oh, it won't stay unmuted.
There you go.
Ah, lovely. Got me now. Okay, that kept turning back. So first up, Rhonda, I apologise for leaving my camera off. To be honest, I'm actually in my pyjamas. It's 5 a.m. in Australia. So that's not being disrespectful to you. I wanted to say that when I first witnessed the clip on the television, and yes, I've only seen the mass media, but it was yet another, and I'd probably be close to echoing Patrick's thoughts, yet another thing that we're seeing. It wasn't, I'm not big on watching news, so it wasn't for a little while until I realised that incident actually resulted in the death. What that has raised is, in Australia, a lot of people saying, oh, aren't things bad in America, how bad it is, and lots of these types of empathetic comments, and yet it actually has made Australians not turn on themselves, but turn and look at themselves, because as I said before, it does happen in Australia the same. But I want to put forward the comment and echo you, Rhonda. Making or remaining silent is a choice in itself. So it can be, being complacent is just as bad as doing bad things. So I think that's a message that we should get across to doing nothing whilst putting these wonderfully supportive comments out on social media. Doing nothing is a choice in itself. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Lang Quinn, you.
Yeah, so my name is Lin Qing. I'm from University of Pennsylvania. So first I want to say I agree with Sharon says that we have to tolerate all voice. Someone want to speak up, someone want to remain silent. We have to cherish their decision. So agree with their decision. Second, I want to say that what Rhonda expressed the feelings is exactly the same feeling I experienced when I first saw the video. I was so shocked to see that how calm those police, those cops behaves like. They are killing a person, a human, but it looks like it's just a normal procedure. All of them, 4 of them. So I was like, how can you do that? I can't understand. And initially, I saw the news, it's like a white cop against a black criminal. Well, I can't say that probably, but a white cop against black people. Then I saw the pictures of these 4 cops. I think one is white, one is Hispanic, and the other one is also black, and there's a Asian. I probably be wrong, but there's a diversity in these cops. So I ask myself, why all these cops have the same actions there? It's not like white against black. There's something that's so deep inside it. Then I remember that several months ago at my our department faculty lunch, It was the first time I learned a word called unconscious bias. So I didn't realize that for myself, I also have some kind of unconscious bias to a lot of things. And I talked with my kids, they know more about this. I talked to my colleagues, I realized this kind of thing exists everywhere. And I think for these cops, that's when they do this, they probably think they're just doing their own job, and they have some kind of bias, think that Black people is more likely to be violent, so that's why they have to put more forces into it. So now I'm going to read more about this and dig out myself. That's what's wrong with myself. But I also want everyone to think about it in our society, in our science field. What kind of unconscious bias we already have, and it also affects not only Black people but also like Asian people, from people all over the world. We need to think about this, and we should solve these problems, not just like a police issue. We have to solve it from the root, so that everyone will realize that we all have this bias, but we have to we have to realize it, and we have to know how to correct it. So I also want to share a movie with you that I saw I think last year, that's called The Basis of Sex. So this is about the Supreme Court judge, RBG, how she devoted herself into this gender equalities. So she was in Harvard Law School, got the first, she scored #1, but she can't find any job at that time. All that reason is because she's a woman. She applied a lot of law office, but she cannot get any job. At that time, everyone's unconscious bias is, as a woman, you shouldn't be a lawyer. You can only go home and raise kids and cook for your husband and do the family thing. And they think that is so normal. Okay, this is not right. And through his work, I think also many other people's work, many protests, many movements, right? We have the prestigious to be here to discuss about science as a woman. I think eventually the Black people will also get to this point. There will be no more racial discrimination in this country, and probably, hopefully, all over the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Lang.
Can I just say something to follow up on that? Those were very good points that you raised, Lang. And part of the perception of Black people is perpetuated by the media. It's the constant barrage of negative image of Blacks that are shown on the media constantly. And so these images are designed to provoke fear and a certain perception of Black people that maintains the power structure. And these images are not true. They don't represent the totality of who we are as people. So in all races, there are people that are going to commit crimes and be violent, but you only see Black people in that light on television. And so you have no choice but to grow up thinking that Black people are violent, they're uneducated, they're less intelligent. You have no choice. And so this is institutional racism. And so when you see images of police kneeling on a man and suffocating him for 9 minutes, it is a result of the fact that we have been dehumanized in this manner. And so once you strip someone of their humanity, you can do anything to them. And it plays out in Black America every day. And it's been playing out in Black America for 400 years. And it's time for a change.
Thanks, Rhonda. We have a few other people with their hands raised here. Megan Wayboda, I'll start with you.
Okay, so I, like Patrick and a few others, didn't really intend to say anything, was more just planning to listen, but because Rhonda was asking for our thoughts on the reaction, I thought I'd throw in my thoughts. I'm from Minnesota, so this news hit me particularly hard, because this is where I'm from, where the Minnesota nice, just and this isn't the first time that we're hearing about this from Minnesota. Minneapolis has a terrible history with their police force, and it's very upsetting. So I was extremely upset when I saw the news. I think I was most surprised just that we got as many protests as we did, because I feel like it's like, how many times has this happened? And it's I don't, so I'm glad everybody's out there protesting, but I was very, very upset. And then, so after the protests started, and because I'm from Minnesota, I have a lot of family members in Minnesota, and the number of people that didn't start to get angry until the looting started, and just now all of a sudden it was about the looting, then I got even more angry, so that's when I started trying to go to social media and started, I don't know how productive it is, but arguing with these, not trying to argue in a productive way, and just kind of being like, what started it all, and kind of putting on some like quotes of like Martin Luther King's speech about what causes people, like you can't just talk about the looting. You have to go deeper than that. You have to, if you're not going to, talk about the evils that are being committed against these people, that, the amount of structural racism, how people are prejudged as guilty. They don't have the opportunity, the same opportunities. It's very upsetting. And so that's about all I say. It's like, I don't always know what the right thing to do is. And obviously I came here, I want to listen. And I think whatever we can do as a community, and I just want to be as much of an ally and have ASBMR be as much as an ally group to support everybody in this.
Thank you, Megan. I think, Nicole, you wanted to add something?
Sure. Thank you for everyone who has spoken, and I'm hearing a lot of sentiments around. I was just coming to listen, and while we all definitely appreciate that, like Rhonda said, and many others have said, that we can't stay silent. Just so everyone knows, the URM, the underrepresented minority population in ASBMRs, is only about 2.5% to 3%. And so if you were expecting us to talk, you would not really hear from that many people. And so we need to hear from you around your thoughts and your feelings of what happened, because not only when people of color are upset and angered by these situations, we also need people from all races and all parts of society to be upset and angered by these situations for our change to come. And so I appreciate and thank you for being on this call and hearing us, and hope that the hearing will turn into action, to come within individual action, community action, and societal action.
Thank you, Nicole. Evan Butman.
Hey, I'm Evan. I'm a postdoc in Virginia. Rhonda, thank you so much for leading everything off. I appreciate the ASBMR for hosting this. I think more conversations like this need to happen more often, especially within our circles and labs. I think answering Rhonda's question about what really struck me is just the complacency. The fact that this altercation with George Floyd went on for 9 minutes and no one did anything, and you even hear public bystanders protesting, like, please, like, let him be, like, he's not fighting, he's not resisting, like, why are you doing this? Just like the cries for help and mercy that weren't heard. And like, it made me think about all the times I've been complacent. And like, since moving to Richmond, I came from St. Louis, which is a very racially segregated city. And then moving to Richmond, it's been like eye-opening, being the once capital of the Confederacy, just how many monuments there still are. And like, luckily today they've decided that they're going to take them down, but it's like, I just can't imagine the pain and hurt of glorifying that history in front of people of color, and the fact that they have to go to work, live their lives in a state of constant oppression like that, to view these monuments. And so for me, I guess being white, it's just, to me, it's eye-opening to think that like, that in itself is being like complacent, of us not saying like, these monuments shouldn't be here. They don't belong in this society, and it's, you know, not a way to promote diversity and inclusion. And so I think, just to echo everyone's statement, I'm thankful for the time to talk and to listen and to learn. And I think it's been really eye-opening to me to see how many instances in my own life of complacency need to stop.
And just to kind of follow up on Evan's point, so he talked about how he couldn't imagine what it would be like to look at these monuments of Confederacy and statues that are all over the United States. But what is even more shocking is the rhetoric that this is somehow something to be glorified, and this is a history to be proud of. So when you hear individuals who fight to maintain the erection of those statues, you really have to look at them, because their argument is, that's my history and I'm proud of it. And that is the real disturbing aspect of this. How on earth could you be proud of such a history? And so I think this gets to the root of the problem. So if you're proud of that history, then that means when you go out into a job, you're going to discriminate against someone. When you see something happening or you hear someone saying racial epithets, you're not going to correct that person because you're proud of this history. So we can't turn a blind eye to those people who fight to keep those monuments, because they're speaking to us and they're telling us and they're revealing to us who they are as people. And their words are going to turn into actions of discrimination and oppression. And this is why it continues.
Thanks, Rhonda. Deb Galson?
Hi. So I just had a couple of thoughts. So one is us as scientists. You know, I read the article recently that talked about how science is judged by so that often people of color who go into science, it's not a whole lot, not enough, are interested in things that relate to their community, and those things are often not funded. And that a lot of funding decisions there's a lot of unconscious bias, and not just about the person, but about the area of care. And that we are not fair in how we choose what's important. And so that's something I think we as scientists can look to ourselves and think about when you're on a grant review committee, et cetera, to ask yourself when you're judging the importance of something, is that because it's not important to you? So that's just sort of I help run a summer program that has an aim of bringing underrepresented minorities into science at the high school age. And, you know, as I try to find speakers for the students to represent them in the summer, it's really made me more keenly aware of how hard it is for me to find an array. And you end up asking the same people all the time, and they're over, you know, it's not fair. But it also just speaks to the fact that we don't have enough people of underrepresented minorities in science. And I think people should also try to think about how we can better support the entrance of people at the early stages, which sort of makes or breaks whether they come our way. So I think as a society, that's something we could focus more on, and that would be helpful. Anyway, that's my comment.
Thank you, Deb. Let me unmute Suzanne Jandifer. Suzanne? Suzanne?
Hi, I'm Suzanne Jandifer, and I'm a faculty member in Baltimore at Hopkins University. And I moved here to Baltimore about 28 years ago. And I remember when I was serving on jury duty, we were going through something called voir dire, where they ask you certain questions to see if you should be on a jury or not. And one of the questions they asked was, would you take the word of a police officer more weight or less weight than you would of anybody else? And a bunch of people in the jury room stood up. And I was horrified. I was like, why would someone not take the word of a police officer? Well, as I've lived in Baltimore and experienced Freddie Gray, seen things in Ferguson, and now witnessed this horror, I understand that. I think what's just struck me so much this time and really just hit me hard with George Floyd is just seeing the entire event, the callousness, the cruelty of basically just strangling someone to death. And then, as Rhonda said, just totally acting with complete disregard, brazen behavior with the immunity of the police. And, you know, I was participating in a march. My daughter said to me, Mom, it's not good enough not to be racist. You have to be anti-racist. Mm-hmm. And so we marched and we knelt for 9 minutes, and sitting there for 9 minutes, my knee was hurting and I was uncomfortable. And I thought, I can't imagine if I had someone's neck under my knee, what the person would be experiencing in that 9 minutes. And it was very emotional. So my daughter's teaching me a lot about our privilege. She said, Mom, it's a privilege just to be educated about inequities and racism and not have to experience it. So I just wanted to tell you what my reaction was, standing there for 9 minutes. It was just horrifying. And I'm sorry that people have to experience that.
Thank you, Suzanne. Faxon, and you should be coming unmute. Faxon, go ahead.
Yes. Hi, I'm Fencing Long. For people who don't know me, I'm a professor at the Children's Hospital Philadelphia. Like many of you have well said, I too was very upset and really outraged by what happened recently. I'm a Chinese American. I've lived in the US for over 30 years. I'm a US citizen for many years. So this is not my first time to experience this kind of tragedy. As a matter of fact, I lived in St. Louis when Michael Brown was killed in Ferguson, just like and noticed Evan spoke earlier. Evan was in the same institution as I was. But to be honest, I was hit really hard this time. Sorry, Susan, it was your fault. Suzanne, you actually really brought this emotional side out of me. And I refrained from watching the whole video. I saw clips of it. But nonetheless, I was trying to think why I was so, it's different this time. Partly, I think my anxiety is compounded by the bigger climate, what's going on in our country, coming out from the White House. I feel like it's really, we've reached a point where this time is different. We have to do something. It's really a time to act, not just to feel sad and feel shy and feel, just stay quiet. I think this time it needs to be, I think the country has reached a point where if we don't do something, it may get much worse from this point on. So I'm trying to think what it can be done. Obviously, as a society, I was thinking what ASBMR can do. And obviously this is a great start. And I think to have this conversation is so helpful. And obviously, we each individual can vote, can use this as a touchstone for the next person we're going to vote into office, whether they're going to treat this inequality seriously and treat this systemic racism as a real issue that determines the future of this country with unrealized potential. And so also as a society, I think we could also probably do a better job, encourage society members to go out to community to support the local politics, local politicians. And I was listening to President Obama, who was speaking on this forum yesterday on MSNBC, I believe, or one of the CNBC probably, something he said really struck me. He said, he was commenting on this congressman from Minnesota. He was commenting that what that person doing is important because you have to have people, in addition to people on the streets to protest, you have to have people inside the system to make sure the voice of protest is being heard and things can be implemented. And the things that task force come out with, recommending with, can be implemented in practice. So that speaks to me that it's really important to encourage minority people to occupy offices. So what we can do is we can really vote for them, and or people who can stand up and to be an officer themselves. That will be even better. So I think a better representation is probably a real important thing for the system to change. So for one, I think I'm more motivated to be more involved in local and national elections to make sure I talk to my neighbors, talk to people in my circle, which is also I realize from recent interactions there's a lot of work to do. That this for people to face up to systemic racism and make sure we can improve this country, which truly has so much more potential to realize. Thank you.
Thank you, Faxon. Chris Unsrud.
Yeah, I'm just, I've been listening. Live in Minneapolis. I don't live too far from 38th in Chicago, and my commute takes me right down Lake Street. I just want to apologize for my community because, it's a horrific event, and our community is really suffering. I think people like me are really trying to help, pitch in, get a broom, try and clean up all the glass, try and help people who don't have enough to eat, and try and rebuild these small businesses and try and attack our Minneapolis Police Department, where racism is deep-seated. It's not a new issue, it's a long-standing issue. I think our governor and I think our mayors of Minneapolis and St. Paul are really trying. There are 4 police officers involved. 3 were bystanders. They were complacent. They did absolutely nothing. Some of them were minorities. They have all been charged. And Keith Ellison, who's our attorney general and a former congressman, is in charge of the case. But I just want to let everyone know that, we are very sorry here in Minneapolis that this happened.
Thanks, Chris. Sobs from Sean. Let me unmute you. Okay.
And his memorial service is happening now.
Thanks.
Even as we're meeting.
Lauren, am I right? Can you hear me?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay. So hi everyone, my name's Sabs. I am an endocrinologist. I'm currently in Boston. I've just been here for a year. There are a lot of things that, there are a lot of emotions and a lot of thoughts right now. And so forgive me if I don't necessarily form any logical sentences. But the first thing I wanted to say was that I'm really sorry for all the people that this is affecting. Being outside of the US, you hear about what the things that, you know, you hear about things like this, but you don't hear the extent to which it is happening. And I must say, that was one of the things that when I did move to the US, I really realized that it is worse than I thought. And that really struck me. I couldn't bring myself to watch the whole video of George Floyd to death. I just watched probably the first few seconds and then I had to stop. But what I've been doing in the last few weeks, is really trying to equip myself with knowledge. I've been reading, going back to where it all started and really trying to learn more about what has happened over, the last 100, at least the last 100 years, and to see why things are the way they are. And I have learned a lot of things that I didn't realize. And all I want to say, I don't want to take up too much time, but in my own way, I just want to pledge that I'll do all I can to do better and be better.
Thanks, Sobs. Laura Billick, you are unmuted. You can go ahead.
That's me. I think I am shocked at how I knew this was going on. And like all of you, it hit me that watching this, I was stunned when I saw it. And then I had to admit to myself, why are you surprised, Laura? Why? And why have you been silent all this time? About 22 years ago, my oldest was about 9 months and we were out in our front yard working in the lawn and we heard a gunshot. And block down the street, a police officer shot a young black man in the back because he stole the purse of their neighbor. And he wasn't convicted of anything. Thought there was no consequences. And based on comments that were made of other police officers we knew, my husband and I realized how racist our local police department was. And we had no idea. And so I should have understood how afraid every mother was for their young black sons. And I'm ashamed. I mean, I'm a mother. I worry about my children all the time, my grown daughters, that they have white skin. I can't even imagine what a mother feels when their young black son goes out to play with their friends at night. And so I have decided to approach this like a scientist. I don't know what else to do. It's been so stressful, and try to look up what is the evidence that tells us about how we can elicit change in police departments. Things that I thought were effective, like training, apparently aren't. And so I don't know what else to do, but I need to feel like I'm doing something to make change. So I'm open to ideas that the rest of the group has. And I want to thank you all for hosting this event and sharing your thoughts and ideas. I find it very helpful.
Lauren, can I jump in for a minute? I just wanted to kind of let people know that a lot of times the cases of black men will be covered on the media, but it's important to know that the statistics are pretty equal with black women. So black women are brutalized and murdered by the police, I think almost at equal rates. And so I think we really need to look at the stats on that, because it's not just confined to men.
Wow, thank you for sharing that.
Thanks, Rhonda. Eileen Short, and then after Eileen, we'll turn it over to Nicole and then Rhonda for closing thoughts here. Go ahead, Eileen.
Yeah, I also want to express my appreciation for the opportunity to listen today and to learn. Boy, as I was waiting for my turn to talk, just like others, the emotions are coming more and more to the surface, and maybe that's a good thing. I guess one of the things that I've been struggling with is what can we do? What can be done to make a difference? I'm old enough. I grew up in the 60s in Newark, New Jersey, and as a very young child, experienced a lot of racial discord, perhaps not too different than what we're experiencing now. And there were changes. There were some things that got better or seemed to get better. But we're really in almost the same place. And it needs to change. You know, I think all of us need to find a way to make things really change. I don't know what the answer is. I hope that that there's a path forward, and I hope that we can have a sustained anger at what our country is like and and still have hope for what our country can be, and just find a way to be better. But thank you for being able to talk about this.
Great. I have just one more counselor, Anna Spagnoli, and then I'm going to turn it over to you, Nicole. Anna, I think if you can unmute yourself. My controls don't seem to be working right now.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So thank you, Rhonda. Thank you, everybody, for being together today. It's very hard time. And when I was listening to you, I was watching the video actually, because it's not easy to open that video and see again and again. I think there is something in that video that stands for all of us. The people around that were continuing to say, check his pulse, check his pulse. Why George was dying and say, I cannot breathe. So there is a way for us to check the pulse of our neighbors, of our people, and all the discrimination of all us. And I think the word of checking the pulse, probably as hard as it can be, is a message. It's a message on reaction, on see who is alive, and reacting to this unbearable violence with check the life of our people, check the life of when the people get discriminated. I can just imagine the trauma of people around witnessing this scene, but we all witness, and we all need to check the pulse. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Nicole?
Again, thank you all so much for attending and sharing your thoughts and reaction. And thank you, Anna, for that last point of checking the pulse. I just want to note everyone to the chat. There's been some good comments. Megan and Evan have posted a couple of websites that you can go to, colorofchange.org, 8 Can't Wait, to get a little more information. And I just wanted to share my thoughts. And so this is me personally, after everything, your Black friends and colleagues, coworkers are probably, and you yourselves are going through emotional roller coasters, but it's probably significantly harder for your Black colleagues. And I just wanted to read a post that I made, so you can see sort of the reactions that we're going through. So I said, I'm in pain. I hurt for Black people. I hurt for the struggles we have and continue to endure. I hurt that I see a Confederate flag every day on my neighbor's truck. I hurt that people are afraid of us. I hurt that people think that they are superior to us. I hurt that I got stared down while walking my dog in my neighborhood that I've lived in for 8 years. I hurt that these years of hate have brought us to the current situation. I hurt that there are more of us in jail than there are behind a lab bench. I hurt that zip code predicts education outcomes. I hurt that I am still one of the few Black women in my field. I hurt. And I'm one of the lucky ones who was blessed with a 2-parent middle-class home who got everything I wanted growing up. Imagine the hurt of people whose stories do not look like mine. Imagine the hurt of my parents who had to live through segregation. Imagine the hurt of my grandma and her parents and their parents. We as a community carry those generations of hurt with us. And so hopefully that can explain some of the hurt and the anger and the rage that has trickled over into some of the violence and the protest, and explains just the pulse of the community right now. And so again, as Anna said, that we need to check on the pulse of the people, check on the pulse of ourselves. Where do we stand? Check how we can make change individually, together as a community, together within ASBMR. And I'll turn it over to Rhonda for our concluding thoughts.
Yes, definitely. I appreciate the conversation. I'm so glad that we had what I consider to be a pretty good turnout. I just wanted to end by reading a poem by Dr. Benjamin E. Mays. It says, I have only just a minute, only 60 seconds in it. Forced upon me, can't refuse it, didn't seek it, didn't choose it, but it's up to me to use it. I must suffer if I lose it, give account if I abuse it. Just a tiny little minute, but eternity is in it. So that's the end of it.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for your respectful and conversation today. Thank you so much, Nicole and Rhonda, for guiding us in this conversation today. Please stay engaged in this conversation, and we will be continuing to have these sessions and do a follow-up session here in the next few weeks too, because as we have heard today, this is an ongoing conversation. It doesn't stop here. So thank you again, everyone. And with that, we'll conclude today's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you so much.